Hi, my name is Myra Tanksley and I'm taping this on May the 23rd, 2014. And I do have a YouTube channel of other videos that can chronicle and detail the story of my autistic son who just turned 21 in April of this year. And he is illegally confined to a state of Ohio ICF MR facility. He's been treated like an animal there. He's been neglected in many ways, abused in many ways, set off by the environment because he is autistic, punished when he gets overloaded. He's repeatedly restrained and tied to a bed. He's not allowed to have phone calls with me, his mother. We only have 60 minutes a week we can visit. He's been punched, he's been attacked, his clothes has been lost, stolen, ripped. He has unexplained injuries. He's been hit by another resident at least twice in his face. I witnessed an audio tape him being punched, attacked, and grabbed by his shirt by a state of Ohio employee. That audio video is in the channel. That happened December 1st, 2012. Everybody in the system is ignoring the abuse. They won't acknowledge it. He's been given dirty Play-Doh for earplugs, forced to wear their dirty, ill-fitting clothes while they take the brand new clothes that I bought him and steal it or give it to somebody else. There are some clothes that I have bought up there that are brand new that I've seen him have on, and then there's some that I've never seen him wear, and they're always dirty. He always has dirty stained clothes on, but most of the time they have been CDC's used clothes because they don't even fit my son. A lot of abuse, a lot of neglect, a lot of cruelty, civil rights violation. He's been subjected to unusual and cruel punishment. And when they restrain him, tie him down to bed, they do that to punish him. They do that for non-compliance, which is no such thing as non-compliance when you're autistic. They actually believe that he's misbehaving, and I've heard them say that to him and to me, and I tell him, I said, well, he doesn't misbehave. His sensory issues are real. You know, when he doesn't want to get on the van, it's because, not because he's trying to be non-compliant or hard or misbehaving. It's a real reason. It's because he's scared of the van and the way it feels because of the way y'all drive it. It's not because he's misbehaving. So, you know, when you hear that kind of stuff, you know you're dealing with untrained people, which gets me to the subject of this particular audio video. Now, when Marquis was illegally committed to the state facility over there, he was actually living in his own apartment through Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities. I was his guardian at the time. He moved into this apartment that I didn't know happened to be as bad as it turned out to be. And before he moved in, and he was still at home with me, you know, Ann Watson, the service coordinator, or they call him SSA, was telling me, and I got all her emails and stuff, because she turned out to be a very vicious, corrupt service social worker. But she was telling me that locations change daily, because I said I didn't really want him in an apartment because I know apartments are noisier than having a house per se. So she said, well, okay, well, locations change daily, and they were going to put him in a house on Livingston Avenue. Then all of a sudden they decided not to, and the only place they told me, the only place we have now is this place that, you know, is over here on Lockbourne Road. So when I went over there and seen it, you know, it was a little tiny apartment, and, you know, they said, well, you know, this is all we have now. So when Marquis moved in, probably about 2 weeks after that, besides the MRDD staff, because he had MRDD, or they call them DD, Developmental Disability Home Staff, 24/7. That was part of his ISP. ISP is a individual service plan that the county uses to bill for services, and it's just like a care plan, you know. So about 2 weeks after that, I was emailing Watson just left and right, and I got all the emails, you know. The place is too small, it's too noisy, the neighbors are hostile, get him out of there, let's find him someplace else, this is not appropriate for his needs as an autistic individual. And they never did find anything. Then when I went on the news, I had an interview with the local news, because Marquis that's where he was arrested. He was in that location when he was arrested, because he ran down the street, because autistic people will wander and run out when they're agitated, or, you know, and he ran down the street. And then, of course, the staff was incompetent, didn't know how to deal with his needs or anything. They called the police on him all the time. That's the reason why when OSU was talking about him going to ER, you know, so many times, it's because the staff was calling on him. Because I wasn't there during the day. I would go there every evening, you know, to check on my son, to fix his dinner, and but I wasn't there during the day. But that's what would be happening. So anyway, let's get back to this audio video, because Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities has a lot to do with my son being illegally confined to Columbus Developmental Center, which is this abusive state facility. They initially sent a request to probate court of Franklin County, Ohio, for evaluation and to commit my son there. It was deceptive about the evaluation, because they lied, and I got that document where they actually sent it to probate court. They lied and said that they couldn't, that the guardian, which was me, they couldn't get me to consent to a comprehensive evaluation. And my son's been having evaluations ever since he's been born. I'm a registered nurse, so I don't have problems with evaluations and assessments, and because I do them myself. I might not do an evaluation per se, like a psychologist or or a medical doctor, but we do assessments as nurses. So there's no big deal about my son having evaluations and assessments. So they lie about that. And Watson had actually sent me an email and told me that she needed to do annual paperwork. And I said, okay, you know, we could do it at the end of June, either in the library or at his apartment, because I thought he had been moved in by now. I said, but we can do it. And we did it, you know. So there was an annual assessment already done for that year. And she never mentioned anything about comprehensive evaluation. But like I said, I don't have problems with evaluation. No big deal. You know, he's been having evaluations ever since he's been born. So they lied on me to try to put me in a bad light as an uncooperative guardian and stuff. Because they were mad at me getting on TV and telling the Channel 6 about, you know, the circumstances, the backdrop of why my son was arrested and thrown in jail overnight. And that's where he was living. He was living in an MRDD apartment. And another thing they probably don't want you to know, and I'm talking about Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities, Marquis was over in one of their apartments excuse me, for about 3 weeks, and he eloped. Again, it was another incompetent MRDD home agency staff, and they didn't know how to manage his autism. He knocked out a window, cut his arm, and ran across the street. I got a phone call from the house manager. And, yeah, he's LOA. That's what you mean he's LOA. Well, he ran across the street, which was a busy street. He could have got hit. And he's bleeding. And they had also called the service coordinator, the county board of DD service coordinator. He went out looking for him, because I guess he said, oh, Lord, this is the last thing we need, publicity, for him to be you know, for once in our own apartment, running out from our own apartment because they didn't keep it locked. And like I said, the staff didn't know how to manage him. Well, make the long story short, they found him. I got over there, you know, his arm was bleeding where he had knocked out the window and stuff. And this company was called Champagne. And of course I filed a complaint, and the board of DD said it wasn't the agency's fault. You know, they just swept it under the rug. And I said, no, but you people are certifying these people and allowing them to go out in the field and have clients when they are untrained, incompetent, they're dangerous. The safety of the client is compromised because they don't have any kind of training or knowledge base. I said, them guys couldn't even say the word autism, let alone know about autism. So they, you know, found fault with my son. I said, well, you can't blame him for his behaviors and not being able to keep himself safe, you know, because they'll bolt and run out. And that's what he did. So back to when he was in his own apartment, you know, I had tried to get him Franklin County to work with me and find another suitable place in the community, because that's one of the number one things that all people have a right to, whether you're handicapped or non-handicapped, elderly, black, white, male, female, whatever. You have a right to be in a or have an existence that's safe and comfortable for you. You might not be all that happy, but it needs to be safe and comfortable. And that apartment was not comfortable because it was noisy. You could hear all the traffic. You think the cars was on the front porch. The lady next door, you know, she was bipolar. She was kind of nice, but she would knock on the wall when Marquis knocked on the wall. But he could, you know, the only bathroom that was in the apartment, because it was structured for a wheelchair person. That's the kind of apartment was, and the only bathroom was in Marquis's bedroom. So staff would always bother him if they had to go in there and use the bathroom. He could hear everything. It was just a real tiny, noisy apartment. So getting back to Franklin County, after I, like I said, went on TV and actually did a interview in Marquis's apartment while he was getting released from jail. After they talked to me, I'm talking about the news channel, they actually contacted Franklin County Board of DD and was told, well, we're going to find him another place to live with new staff. And that happened to be CDC. So they sent this request on over to probate court. And so the second time that they came to arrest Marquis, the jail wouldn't take him. So they took him to OSU Wexner Medical Center, which has treated him like crap. Please see the audio video of him being, his eye being cut by a OSU security guard when he hit my son in the eye when they were trying to restrain him in ER. It's just so much. I mean, we just have an army full of corrupt people, you know, judges, attorneys, agencies, hospitals, home agencies, government agencies, you just name it. But Franklin County is, like I said, and I'm going to prove how big they were in this thing. They worked in concert with other people to take my guardianship and also to get my son illegally committed over to CDC, because they mislabeled him as moderately retarded. Franklin County Board of DD, that's part of the court document, that he's moderately retarded. And then they went after my guardianship along with the state of Ohio, David Belinky, and OSU. So this audio video is about the MUI Department. Because during this time, while Marquis was at his apartment, like I said, he had a very incompetent home service agency in developmental disabilities. They didn't know about autism. They were sleeping on the job. They gave him wrong medication. That's at that time Marquis ran down the street they said he was running down, because the girl next door told me, said he was running down the street like a madman. Well, they had mixed up the medication, because I would go over there every day and check it. I could check the quantity and make sure, that he was getting the right type of medication. What them not knowing how to read, because I made out the medication sheet for him and everything else, and showed the bottle, labeled the bottle, put the times on it, and they gave my son the wrong medication, so it threw him off. But they were giving him wrong medication. They had no home etiquette. They were leaving the site. They were sleeping on the job, and all of this was being reported to Franklin County Board of Developmental Disability, MUIs. But guess what? They wasn't filing it. How I found that out was because I have actually filed a complaint with the Ohio Auditor's Office, the State of Ohio Auditor's Office, about this particular home agency. And I was telling them that they were just essentially collecting money for not delivering or performing the ISP contents. I said they're not delivering the services. I said they were violating the ISP left and right. So I guess, because I'm not there, but I guess it trickled back down to Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities. So this gal named Toby Payne calls me. And you'll hear on the tape, and this is the tape that I'll be playing, that she constantly tries to get me to come in the office to talk about the MUIs, which startled me because I know I had called them in. I thought they filed them. Maybe they filed everybody else's, but they sure didn't file mine, And I said, no, just go by, the MUIs. Well, sometimes we file them, sometimes we don't. So that's the first thing she said, to try to save face. And then it came out that the reason why she was asking for them, because I asked her, I said, well, what letter? And then she said, well, you filed a complaint with the auditor's office, and they sent it to this person, and they sent it back to me. So when I told her, I said, well, this happened months ago. I said, just go through the MUI. So it finally came out after she probably begged me about 5 or 6 times to try to get me in her office to talk about it. I said, I'm not going to come in your office to talk about some MUIs that I filed with or that I reported or call into your MUI department that y'all should have filed. I'm not going to, I said, and when I was talking to her, I was in the car, I said, I don't have those records in front of me. I said, but, you go by the MUI. So she finally admitted what she didn't want to admit at the beginning of the conversation. Well, we didn't file them. Some of them we didn't file. But she probably didn't file any of them. So this will prove how they treated, because some people might say, oh, well, they've been wonderful to our family, but that's your family. But as far as me and Marquis is concerned, I think it's probably because the kind of mother I am. It could also do with other biases and stuff like that. I don't have to go into the history of this country, whether people want to admit to it or not. But we have been treated like crap. But this tape shows that Franklin County Board of DD did not file the MUIs that I had called in multiple times and reported to them when my son was living in his own apartment and had 24/7 DD staff. And it's significant because he still should be out in the community, but he didn't have a snowball chance in hell to thrive in that place or to stay in the community. That's the reason why I said, I want him to come back home with me. Because my son had basically been with me all his life. And I just want him to come back home with me. Well, at least I know he's not being treated like an animal and neglected and abused, and he'll be safe and happy. But he was in his own apartment. He was not illegally confined to CDC, living at home with me. When he eloped, he was in his own apartment. When he got arrested, he was living in his own apartment with DD staff. When they were taking him to ER constantly, because every time something would happen, they call the police. And most of the time, police would take him over to OSU, and then I would get a call, and they had already taken him there. And then by the time I get there and stuff, he'd be so overloaded from the staff over there. I mean, Marquis has just been through hell. But I vowed I was going to show people what I'm talking about. I said, because a lot of people don't realize that when you're dealing with systemic corruption, that you're going to deal with an army full of different people, you know, that play different roles. You know, the attorneys, the corrupt attorneys, they abuse their power, go down there and file all kind of motions against you, and you know, the courts and stuff. Well, we're the judge and we're the attorney, so we can do this. Let's file this motion and stuff. Agencies abuse their power too, just like these idiots over at Franklin County Board of DD, you know, file that, well, I'm the liaison for probate court, so yeah, I'll get her, you know, let's write down this and write down that and stuff. And I vowed that I was gonna, and I want to apologize for coughing. I got a little bit of a, kind of like a little bit of a cold or so, but I vowed that I was gonna not only show and prove the abuse of Marquis, the neglect of Marquis, the cruelty that he has been suffering since he has arrived at CDC, but I vowed that I would show people the corrupted process, the process of how they do their corruption, how they abuse their power with documents, court documents, and you know, just being in those jobs and having those titles, they can really go after people and violate people's civil rights. So without further ado, here's a tape of Toby Payne, an employee that works in the MUI Department of Franklin County Board of Developmental Disabilities, trying to get me to come in there and give her dates and times of the MUIs, because they didn't file them when I called them in and reported them months ago. So and it's a big deal because it should have been filed, but it just let me know that they didn't take me and my son's case seriously enough, because I'm trying to get my son to be able to live safely in the community in his own apartment, and the people that they're paying are not delivering the goods. They weren't delivering the services. They weren't able to perform competently as the ISP requires them to do. So but it just came back to show I would have never known that if she wouldn't have called me and told me when the auditor's office probably requested, well, y'all need to do investigation, get all the MUIs on this particular agency, home agency, and they weren't able to do it. Franklin County was not able to do it because they never filed the MUIs, serious MUIs. So without further ado, here is this tape of Toby Payne, and this was on December the 6th, 2012. And then she had promised, after she couldn't get me to come into the office with all the MUIs that her agency did not file, the MUIs that I had called against this particular agency, she said, well, I'll call you back, because I made her realize that I wasn't going to come in there and you go back to your MUIs, which she didn't have. But she said, well, after I look up everything, I'll call you back. Well, she never did call me back. So December the 6th, 2012, here it is. And thank you for listening.
Have you on it?
Yes, this is Toby Payne. Yeah, this is Myra Casey. I'm calling back. You said something about an MUI, so kind of explain what you're talking about, because I have been making MUIs out ever since my son, or reporting them ever since my son moved into that apartment, and you never called me back. So
We did file, some of them did file, and I have one of them. So that's why I wanted to set a time to sit down and go over all of your concerns and stuff like that.
well, and what are these filings on? Who is the subject?
Well, your son, you had made a complaint. Let me pull that file real quick, okay?
Well, I don't make complaints against my son. Who did I make the complaint?
Regarding your son.
Okay, well, who's the people that I made a complaint against?
See here, it looks like, looks like you wrote a letter to the auditor of state, and they sent it to somebody, who sent it to me, and it's my responsibility to investigate.
Yeah, I know I did, because, so, did it say who it was about, other than...
The company is a Native African company. There's, let's see here, the agency.
Now, I had to stop because at first she said some of them MUIs we filed, some of them we don't. Then she said, and I have one of them here, you know. So, actually, she really didn't have any of the MUIs to actually probably do a proper report or investigation of this company. Back to the tape.
Solitude Care, yeah.
Family Foundation, one of those two?
No, it was just Solitude Care. But I reported them a lot of times to you all and stuff.
Yeah, sometimes the information's not filed, sometimes it is.
Yeah, because they, with just everything. It was med errors and sleeping on the job, was leaving the site, just multiple violations of the ISP.
Right. So is there more to this that you want to add, or just leave it as such with the letter? I mean, you're more than welcome to come in and talk to me, or...
No, it's just everything that I told, you all when I would call and stuff, because there's been so many of them. I have to just go through my records to see and stuff, but I called on them multiple times for violating that ISP, and it was in a lot of different areas. You name it, they were doing it.
Okay. Well, do you want to come in, or just want me to go off based off of your letter?
Well, go off based off on what I told your agency when I called. Because when I called, I always gave them content and details about why I was calling. But some of us met there, some of us they leaving the site, some of them was, sleeping on the job, you name it. It was just multiple violations of the ISP.
Okay. Well, alright. Well, would you like to come in, or...
Why do I have to come in? I mean, I'll just probably tell you the same thing that I told you before and stuff.
Okay.
It's just multiple violations. Y'all should have all the dates. I can't remember all the dates, because this stuff started way back after he moved in and stuff.
Okay.
With Solitude and stuff. It's just one incident after another, but I'm sure I wrote it down. I just don't have my files with me in this car right now, but it's multiple things, because I thought that they should have been held accountable for all. They shouldn't even be out there practicing in the field. They're dangerous, they're untrained.
So do you want me to just go based off of your letter, or would you like to come in to speak with me? That's your choice.
Well, what letter? The letter doesn't tell you all the details. Go off of those MUIs, because I was...
We didn't file everything.
Oh, well, y'all said it. Yeah.
So there you have it right there. She said, well, we didn't file everything. Well, actually, they didn't file anything. Because at the beginning, she said, well, they just had one. And then it was like, well, sometimes we file, sometimes we don't. But at the beginning, she said, and I just have one. But, and she went there, called and asked about me coming in and practically begging me to come in, and in subtle ways. You know how corrupt people try to, get things done, but in subtle ways or corrupted ways. But she was just practically begging me to come in that office and expect for me to give her dates on these MUIs that I told the state auditor's office that I filed. So, and they didn't have it. So let's finish listening to the rest of this telephone conversation with Toby Payne of Franklin County Board of DD, and that will be it.
Well, you need to change that, Toby. You can file everything and stuff, because I don't want you to go off that letter. That letter is about them being out there and just be practicing because it was just over and over and over. And I can't even tell you all the dates that I called for the MUI. It was that many, and you know that. But, you know, I can't tell you, I can't go by the letter because it's not just a letter thing. It's this agency out there doing multiple repeated offenses of that ISP.
Okay, so if you want to come in, we can set up time to meet.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's funny and stuff, but, you know, I don't think it's all about a letter. It's all about the agency that's actually out there being certified by your department, and they're not actually even, you know, performing the way they're supposed to be performing. That's all I'm talking about and stuff. But, you know, the MUIs need to be filed and stuff. I did my job. I just reported it and stuff. So if you could just go through ever since August and see if you could pull up some MUIs and stuff. I mean, I know every time I call and stuff, but I don't have it in front of me. It's just actually in my records and stuff. But, you know, when I call them, I think they should be filed and stuff. But those things to me are...
Do you want to bring the records in, or do you want it or not? That's up to you.
Well, you know, just pull up what you can and just know this, that, you know, this is stuff that, you know, what, 3-4 months ago, which is August, 4 months ago or stuff, and it's repeated stuff. And it's solitude care. It's not United Family Foundation stuff. They only had, and they need to start working with them and stuff. So, yeah, this is solitude care. That's David and them. So.
Okay, sounds good. I'll call you back when I get some information.
All right then. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
So there you have it. I didn't count how many times she practically tried to get me to come into the office to give her information that she never had in the first place, and that they didn't keep or file. And MUIs means major unusual incidents. And, you know, the bad thing about this, and the reason why I'm exposing it, because the people need to know Franklin County Board of DD is just as bad as the state of Ohio. And I said, people can say all they want to say about the federal government, but President Obama and company are saints compared to this government scum that I have had to deal with in county government and state of Ohio government. So, but the only reason why she called me is not because she cared about what Marquis went through, because by that time they had already, Marquis, that was on December 6, 2012, Marquis had already been illegally confined to the state facility with the, you know, help of Franklin County. So she wasn't calling because she cared about what Marquis went through in the community. They didn't want him back in the community. The county did. Franklin County Board of DD didn't want him back in the community. Neither did OSU. But she didn't call because she cared about Marquis and she really wanted to get to the bottom of this. She called to try to complete her investigation. But she says, my responsibility, you know, about the MUIs. And there was none there. So that's the only reason why she called. Because she needed that information to try to I guess, start her investigation or complete her investigation after I reported it to the Ohio Auditor's Office. So there you have it. Franklin County Board of DD did not file the MUIs that I reported to them while Marquis was living in one of their MRDD apartments, and while he had a home agency, and they were about the home agency incompetence and violating the ISP. Thank you for listening. Look for the next couple of tapes that I will have of the former guardian ad litem who is deceased. His name is David Belinke, and one on the corrupt court-appointed attorney. That is my son's limited guardian for medical and placement decisions. That one is coming next. Thank you for listening and have a blessed day.